Okay, so we've got this fantastic stack of sources here, all focused on Native American Heritage Month. And what really jumped out at me immediately were these stories of three women. Their achievements are just, well, frankly, staggering. These aren't just names in a history book. They were monumental leaders. Their work, stretching over centuries, really redefined what people thought was possible. So our goal with this deep dive today is to get past just recognizing the names. We really want to pull out the facts, the numbers, the actual scale of what they did, just to help you grasp quickly why their contributions were so incredibly important. For their own communities, yeah, but also for the wider nation. Okay, let's get into this source material.
Right. And I think what connects all this whole deep dive, is wanting to look beyond just the general story. We want to focus on the specific scale, the measurable stuff. We've got an explorer who basically enabled a journey across the continent. Then there's a medical visionary who was like a one-woman health system for a huge region. And then a political chief who essentially rebuilt a tribal government from the ground up. So yeah, different times, different challenges, but the common thing, it's this immense, groundbreaking resilience. And the real insight we're kind of chasing here is understanding that these women weren't just, part of history, they were architects, foundational ones. We need to really look closely at the details in these sources to appreciate the sheer effort, the commitment involved. It's astounding.
Absolutely. So let's start chronologically. Makes sense. Let's begin with the pioneer of exploration, Sacagawea, Lamhi Shoshone. Lived around 1788 to 1812. Now everyone knows her name, right? Interpreter guide for Lewis and Clark. But when you really dig into the facts, what our sources show is that her role was, well, it was fundamentally strategic. Just look at the basic facts of her involvement. They're staggering on their own. She's navigating the wilderness, making critical decisions on the fly, handling complex diplomacy.
That she was a teenager.
Exactly, a teenager at a time when, those people her age were just starting their adult lives.
Yeah, and this is where we really need to pause and let that sink in. The sources emphasize this. She guided that huge, famous expedition as a teenager. Think about that level of responsibility. I mean, She wasn't just pointing, the river's that way. She was crucial for the political safety, the survival of the entire group. And the physical aspect, we just can't gloss over that. She's crossing the American West. Unbelievable terrain, often completely uncharted, while carrying her infant son. I mean, forget guiding the expedition for a second, just managing a baby across the Rocky Mountains in 1805. That alone is, wow, legendary status right there.
It completely changes the picture you have of that whole expedition, doesn't it? It just speaks to incredible focus, incredible strength, but also this deep knowledge of survival, all in a teenager.
It really does, and the sources highlight something critical. Her contribution wasn't just about guiding or translating. Her very presence with the baby
signaled peace.
Exactly. It signaled non-hostility to tribes they encountered who might have been, understandably wary. That was often the key factor, allowing them to pass safely. So her value was diplomatic, symbolic, even before she said a word. She basically ensured the expedition survived politically and physically.
Oh, wow. A living, walking peace treaty. That's amazing. Okay, so shifting from charting physical land, let's move to someone charting the territory of public health. Susan Flesche Picotte, Omaha Nation. Born 1865, died 1915. Her story marks this really critical pivot, moving from 19th century exploration into the huge challenges of modern medicine at the turn of the century. And her big achievement, it's a major one for institutional history, first Native American woman to earn a U.S. medical degree. That is just a massive accomplishment in itself, especially when you think about the barriers to education back then, late 19th century, huge.
Totally. But the really critical detail we found in these sources, it isn't just that she got the degree. It's what she did with it. And the sheer scale of her commitment afterwards, her work ethic, considering the conditions, it's just astounding. The sources detail she treated over 1,300 patients.
1,300?
Yeah, that's an enormous number for any doctor, any time, let alone working mostly alone at the turn of the century. But then look at the area she covered, her territory. 450 square miles.
450 square miles.
450 square miles. That's bigger than many cities today. We need to just sit with that number for a second, really absorb it.
Okay, 450 square miles. So if she's seeing 1,300 patients across that much space, how often could she even get back to see the same person twice? The logistics alone, it suggests she must have been just working constantly, beyond exhaustion, like running a nonstop emergency room spread across this massive distance.
That's exactly it. That's the core of her dedication. The research highlights she often made her rounds on horseback, or even on foot.
On foot, seriously?
Yeah, seriously, on foot. This wasn't like a modern doctor, driving a car to scheduled appointments. This was relentless physical work plus complex medical care, dealing with infectious diseases, injuries across this huge, sparsely populated area. She was the public health system for her community. One woman.
It makes like a modern doctor's house call seem like a walk in the park. It's a totally different universe. She was basically a mobile hospital, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Serving this enormous area that otherwise would have had nothing.
Precisely. And her legacy, it went beyond just her own service. Our sources really highlight her lasting institutional impact. She wasn't only about immediate care, she founded the first privately funded hospital on a reservation. Think about that. She didn't just treat patients. She built the infrastructure, vital infrastructure to support health for the future. That takes medical skills, sure, but also incredible political and financial smarts. Visionary stuff.
That structural work, building institutions, it perfectly sets up our final figure. Wilma Mankiller, Cherokee Nation, lived between 1945 and 2010, so now we're moving into the modern era. Her focus wasn't exploration or even direct medical release in the same way. It was about rebuilding the tribal foundation from the inside, and her historical significance, immense. She was the first woman to be principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. That kind of leadership role that carries huge symbolic weight, of course, but also just enormous tangible responsibility, governing thousands of people.
Right. And the strength of her impact, you find it in just how broad her reforms were. She didn't just, occupy the office or focus on symbolism. The sources make it really clear. Her time as chief was focused on practical, fundamental change, measurable change, all aimed at achieving real self-governance.
Okay, so what specifically do the sources point to about that rebuilding? This wasn't just filling a role, like you said. This was nation building. What was the scope of the change she brought?
The scope was comprehensive. You see measurable results mentioned again and again. Her administration revitalized tribal governance itself, built strong foundations for self-determination. Critically, she massively improved tribal healthcare programs, building modern, scalable systems, and she dramatically boosted education initiatives too.
So foundational services, things that affect every single person in the nation.
Exactly. She was focused on the bedrock stuff: healthcare, education, governance. And there's this one data point you often see cited in the research. During her leadership, the Cherokee Nation's enrolled population nearly tripled.
Tripled, yeah.
Partly because people were genuinely inspired by the direction the nation was going.
Yeah.
They saw tangible improvements in quality of life and services. They wanted to be part of it.
So we're talking about comprehensive, practical investment, foundational services. That fundamentally changed daily life and future prospects for thousands. That's immense power used incredibly well.
It absolutely is. And her legacy, as the source material highlights, it's also powerfully aspirational. By taking charge, achieving such huge quantifiable success in governing, she basically created a visible path forward. She inspired generations of Indigenous women, showing them they could lead at the highest levels. And that leadership means focusing on real fundamental change, not just, quick wins.
What an incredible range of leadership. Okay, let's just step back for a second and synthesize what we've pulled for these sources. We've covered Sacagawea, her vital 19th century diplomacy, her incredible physical endurance. Then Susan Flesche Picotte, that grueling medical service covering 450 square miles, building the first reservation hospital. And finally, Wilma Mankiller, her 20th century revitalization of government, healthcare, education with the Cherokee Nation. 3 huge figures.
And the thread connecting them all, it's this willingness to face just unique, immense obstacles and not just overcome them, but make a vital foundational contribution. Contributions that impacted their own people, sure, but also shaped the broader story of the U.S. They didn't just participate in history, they fundamentally defined success in their fields that were vastly different. They forced history to take notice.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that real leadership is often found right where the most critical service is needed. Often the service is, underappreciated at the time. So for you listening, here's our final thought to kind of chew on. If effective leadership really is found where that critical service is needed most, which type of achievement carries more weight in the long run? Is it that high stakes immediate success, like guiding an expedition and ensuring survival right now? Or is it the slower, maybe less dramatic, but relentless foundational work, covering 450 square miles year after year to deliver care? Or rebuilding an entire government structure piece by piece?
Yeah, and building on that thought, think about the long-term impact. Sacagawea's achievement, it immediately changed the map. Literally, it had this huge instant effect. Mankiller and Picotte, though, they focused on creating institutions, a hospital, a revitalized government, things whose benefits ripple forward potentially forever across generations. So which form of that foundational service, the immediate catalyst, the spark, or the perpetual engine, the institution, which do you think ultimately has the longer lasting impact on a nation, on a people? That's definitely something worth reflecting on.
That's a really powerful point. Legacy versus immediate necessity. How do we weigh those? So reflect on the sheer scope of these achievements we talked about today, and maybe think about which specific accomplishment, the incredible physical feat of the teenage guide, the grueling geographic coverage of the doctor, or the systemic rebuilding of a whole nation's governance, which one stands out most to you personally? That's our deep dive for today.